Hello, my name is Lauren Weinreb, and I am with LBW Coaching. And I'm throwing it in the air because I don't know if I actually made it to LBW Coaching, and somebody is going to chime in and let me know if I did. Welcome to my very first webinar with LBW Coaching. And it started as Choose You. Hi, Heather. Can you let me know if I'm on my business page? Because there were some problems, but that's okay. I did. Wow, that's exciting. So sorry I was late. So welcome to Choose You. Take 3 steps, learn 3 steps into your everythingness and release your past. Woo. I am so grateful that you all showed up here. I am so blessed that you gave me your time. Just let me go ahead and tell me that you're here in the chat box. Say hello, hello, hello. What I am gonna say is, now that I know I'm in my business page, I'm gonna take a huge deep breath and I'm gonna be super focused now, and I am going to hold off on interactions and questions and answers until the very end of the webinar. But I am so grateful that everybody's showing me that you're here, because it just fills me with such joy. So I want to give you a rundown of everything that's going to go on tonight. First, I'm going to share a little bit about myself and about how I took an amazing transformation into who I was meant to be, and releasing everything that I took with me from my past, and found the tools and the strategies to let those things go so that I could step into my everythingness. And then I'm going to share with you the three of the steps among the 80 million, but 3 of the steps that were really an integral part of my transformation. So those 3 things are telling your story, meeting your gremlin, and learning to build the self-awareness so around the blocks that are keeping you stuck in your past, so that you can release them and you can move forward and you can write the future that you want, because choice is the greatest freedom, and you have the choice. So my journey has been amazing. I've actually been I'm 49, but I've been in a 48-year rocky relationship with myself. Really struggling I didn't know I was having a rocky relationship with myself, but I was. Now I'm not. Now I'm incredibly gracious with myself. But I was involved in a very rocky relationship, and it was because I was holding on to my past and allowing the filters and the experiences from my past block me into stepping into what it was that I truly wanted, because I couldn't even figure out what it was that I truly wanted, how to access that. So, my story, which I don't know if you watched on my first post publicly, my story begins little bits and pieces. I'm not defined by it, but these are the little bits and pieces. At a very young age, through my teens, I suffered emotional and physical abuse from my mom. And then growing up, I had a very chaotic, difficult relationship with my mother, because she suffered from borderline. She was a borderline, and she also suffered from narcissism. And that was a very difficult relationship. There was good, there was bad. We did the best we could. And then the third part is that there was a father, and he was a little absent. They got divorced when I was very young, and he left, and at some point he took my brother, my baby brother, and they left, and I was left. And so those are the issues that kind of stayed with me for quite a while. And I want to tell you, before we move forward, this isn't about the struggle with the parents. That's a completely separate issue. I've also worked incredibly hard at understanding where they came from and finding compassion and grace for their experiences. And I've actually found forgiveness, but that is a separate part. But I want you to know that that's a big part of my journey as well. So my story, which was that my mother died 2.5 years ago, unexpectedly. She went in for surgery, and I didn't want to be with her because it was very stressful, and I decided to go with her for her surgery, and then she didn't wake up. And I was by her side for 5.5 weeks, and I got to do a lot of soul searching, and it was an amazing experience. And then after she passed, I spent a good 9 months in the corner of my couch in what I thought was a depression, but I think we don't even have to call it that. There was silence, and that's where I found a lot of the answers. Take notes, silence. So where I am right now in sharing my story, the interesting thing that I want to share with you is my story, in sharing it with you, is an evolution in itself. Because what I found was that I couldn't own my story. I would be in therapy, or I would talk to my friends, and I was always minimizing my story. It wasn't that bad, it wasn't that bad. And it was. But I didn't want to be a victim. And it wasn't that bad. And so I spent my life minimizing my experiences, and that created a lot of problems because you can't heal what you don't own. And that's a really critical part. And so I share my story, but before I went to share my story, I had to call my brother. We're very close, but I had to share with him that I was going to talk about this and kind of out our parents. And the other thing I want to say is there's so much shame around our stories because people knew my parents and they loved my parents. And I want you to know that I also understand that they should continue to love my parents because there was a separate relationship. But I had to figure out that this wasn't about my parents. This was about me. This was about me letting go of my past and all of my experiences and stepping into what I was supposed to be. So all of this shame, all of this anger that I carried with me, I was this very angry person, very angry at my mother. And when she died, I didn't know what to do with all that anger. And it actually disappeared because I didn't need it anymore. But in that recovery after her death, I was stuck. I still felt broken. And that's how it wasn't about my parents. I knew that it was about all of the messages. I was broken. I was unworthy. So anyway, I tell my brother, I'm stepping through this weekend, the very first time, hey Stu, I know you know I'm a life coach, but I'm going to share this story. And I literally thought I was going to die. I thought I was going to pass out. The world was going to end. We don't talk. You don't talk about these things. Like maybe there was a joke here and there, when we were growing up. And I called him and I said, hey, I'm going to be sharing our story. And I literally thought the world was going to end. And he said, I'm so proud of you. That's wonderful. We had it really bad. And I'm so happy that something good came from this. And it's amazing how I changed over the weekend, how closer I became with my brother by stepping into the truth, by releasing the shame, because I was the only person stuck in that shame. And that's a huge, huge part of my growth. And that's a part of one of the steps that I'm going to share with you. And so the people that I work with are the survivors of trauma and abuse. And the people that are still imprisoned by their past that want to claim their everythingness and step into their emotional and spiritual freedom. And it was funny, I changed my title because after I promoted that, I felt so strong. I was so proud of myself. It was such a beautiful experience with my brother. And I was like, that's it, I'm changing the title from victim to warrior. So now I'm walking around feeling like a warrior. And so I want all of you to join me in our lives being warriors, stepping forward for ourselves. And I wouldn't change my experience because it made me who I am. And there's meaning in everything that we experience. So what I want you to know is that we all have a story. And I know this because in my training as a coach, I sat in a room where it was all about vulnerability. And we talked and we shared and there was this openness. And I found my tribe, I found my people. And they talked about what it was like, what their gremlins were, what their fears were, what their experiences were. And for the very first time in my life, I didn't feel different. I didn't feel bad. All of the shame I felt, I realized was just, it was so useless and it was all lies. And I realized that we all have a story. We all have something that we've held on to. Most all of us have a pain from our past in our experiences that has left an emotional imprint and shapes the way that we live our life. But I'm here to tell you, it doesn't have to have control over your life. And let me tell you, I believe that I've won the human lottery by realizing that we are all connected on this journey. And that is the cure. Connect to each other. Everyone has a story. Everyone has a pain. We've all experienced it. There's different characters, different plots, but the emotions are the same. And I do truly believe that there is a shared emotional experience, a thread across humanity that connects us all. And it was the most beautiful experience to know that I wasn't alone. So as we move forward tonight, I hope you will trust that you are not alone. So I'm not sure what it is in your life that creates filters for you and how you see the world. But the very first thing that I want you to consider doing is telling your story. And there's a reason that you need to tell your story. You need to find that voice. You need to speak up for yourself. You need to speak the truth. You need to release that shame. The shame is only coming from some dark place that has no truth. And when you release it, everything inside of you will come out. You will see that there's no reason to hold on to it. Speak your truth. Find your voice. Validate that little person inside of you that needs to be heard. Allow that little person to be healed. I actually wrote it out, and I've done this before with other people. I wrote out what happened, and then I wrote out what should have happened. Somebody should have stepped in. Somebody should have called somebody. Somebody should have hugged me. Somebody should have said, you don't deserve this. Somebody should have said, this isn't normal. There's something better. And by doing that and writing a different ending, it's not even an ending. It's just writing the extra part, the part that should have happened. You allow that little person who is stuck in that space to heal a little more, to be heard. And I think that that's so important because right now they're just stuck inside of you. And the other thing that you can do, and I've done this with people, when my mother died, I did a lot of personal work. This took a long time. I wrote a letter on behalf of my mother. I pretended I was my mother. I did a visualization, and I knew that she loved me. She did a shitty job raising me. Sorry, that's a bad word. I don't know. I know she meant well. I know she loved me. But she couldn't do it. She was broken. And so I envisioned her in heaven, healed, safe, and whole. And I wrote an apology letter from her. The way that she would have said it to me, that I knew was free from all of her pain so that I could hear it. I wrote it as if she were speaking to me. Everything that she would want to have said to me that I couldn't hear. And it was so powerful because it was without my anger. And I can tell you that it gave an accountability to the situation, and it gave grace and compassion to that little girl who wanted a mommy a certain way and couldn't have that. And I can't promise you completely, but I can tell you that at the end, you may actually inch your way towards some forgiveness for the person who hurt you. So that's number one. Number two, I want you to meet your gremlin. A gremlin in my world is the inner critic. It's that little itty bitty voice in your head that pops up and says really not good things to you. Everyone has one. Anybody who says they don't is lying. Everyone has a gremlin. Sometimes our gremlins are strong, sometimes they're not. I know that some coaches tell you, so first of all, you need to externalize your gremlin so that you can actually see it. That always helps. Some people tell you to name it. Sometimes they tell you to name it something that you don't know, someone that you don't know. But in my journey, I did. At first I did, and I got kind of like bullying back at my gremlin. And then something shifted in me, and I realized that I don't want force in my life on any level. And so what ended up happening was I ended up seeing my gremlin as little Lauren, the little girl. Gremlins come from your past. They arise out of love to keep you safe. They actually want to keep you safe. Don't do that speech. You remember that one time that didn't turn out well. I can't let you. Be afraid, be afraid. And they keep you afraid. They keep you doubting yourself. They tell you stories from 100 years ago that you misinterpreted anyway. But they do. They want to keep you safe. And so you don't do what it is that you want to do. So what I want you to do is meet your gremlin. Name it something else. Name it little you. I called it little Lauren, and I knew that it needed to be loved. And so it needed to be loved. It needed to be comforted. It needed to be healed. So just remember that they're carrying every single experience and every single emotion of your past. So what you want to do is kind of visualize a scenario where you're talking to your gremlin, and you can say something like, hey, listen, I know you came to me to keep me safe, but I'm okay now. I don't need you to scare me from applying for this job because I am qualified. I know that somebody a long time ago told me I wasn't qualified. I didn't get great messages, but I am qualified, and I need you to trust me. I need you to have faith that I can keep us both safe now. And so what I worked on doing was reintegrating my gremlin back into myself with love, so that when I start to feel, and I know you people have felt this before, that little twinge, and you're afraid to do something, or you doubt yourself, or you're angry, or you're judging, ask yourself why. Ask yourself where it's coming from, and then look inward and talk to your gremlin and say, hey, we don't need to do that. We're okay. We've got this. Come with me. I'm going to show you what this looks like. And I know that sounds a little woo-woo, but I got to tell you something. That has been an incredibly powerful tool. There is a little person inside of you holding all of your pain, I promise you. And I am sure, I would love to know who has identified that little inner critic, because they're powerful. But the goal is, after you start practicing that, what happens is you start to close the gap on the power that the gremlin has over you. I spent my entire life living in fear of rejection, fear of failure, name it, put it on the list. I was afraid. I never put myself out there. Now, maybe I did, and there's a lot of people who think I'm loud and funny and look at all the things you've done, but you don't know what's going on in my head. We don't know what's going on in your head. Everybody thinks they can tell the story for someone else, but we all know that's not true. And I can tell you, actually, I couldn't tell you 2 years ago. I had no idea how fear crippled me, how there were so many things in my life that I wanted to do, but because I was afraid, I never did them. So now that I'm aware of what of my little inner critic, I'm working on closing that gap, that control that the little inner critic has over me. And that's really powerful. It's a beautiful connection between the two of you, and there's a lot of love that can do a lot of healing. So next, the next thing that you're going to need to do is to learn to build self-awareness. We all think we're self-awareness, but we're really only self-aware of the things we're aware of. What I want you to do is think about what it is that you're not aware of. And it's kind of like that. You don't know what you don't know. So when you start to think, when you start to really get quiet and ask yourself, where have I been stuck? Where do I feel fear? What is it I want to do that I'm not doing? There's a thing behind the thing. And so you want to start noticing when you get a tense neck, when your heart races, when you get dizzy. My head would sometimes go like this and I couldn't keep my thoughts together. And I can tell you it takes a lot of time and a lot of practice, but it is a gift that you give yourself that pays exponentially to your heart and soul. And once you start tuning into your self-awareness, you get even better at it. And it starts opening different channels inside of you, and you start to realize all the things that you didn't realize you didn't know. Like, number one, these are the 4 specific blocks that we work with. The first one are the limiting beliefs. These are the generalizations or stereotypes that you have in your life that have come from family, culture, work, and they keep you limited. They keep you stuck. And we don't always realize that we have them. I can't go out for that job because I don't have that education. What I want you to start doing is challenging every single one of those limiting beliefs that are keeping you from reaching your potential. And say to yourself, how true is that? I'm telling you, I know for a fact everybody has little conversations in their head. I may have more than many people, but I know that we talk in our head and I know that we think things. The second block are interpretations. Those are the stories and opinions that you have about situations or events that have occurred that aren't right. It's kind of like telling someone else's story. And I taught my children from many, many years ago, you don't get to tell someone else's story. Unless someone looks at you and tells you something, you don't get to write the story. Because what happens is you react off the story that you've decided isn't even true. It isn't steeped in truth. Sometimes you might walk by somebody and you say, hey, and you smile and they just go like this. And you're like, oh my gosh, I think they're mad at me. And then you ruminate and you go around and you start thinking of all the things that happened. Instead of being honest and vulnerable and addressing it, you tell your own story. You get jacked up. You tell yourself, oh my God, I'm rude, I'm mean, I should have done this. We all do it. Start to become aware of when you're doing it. If you're here, you've opened yourself up to the universe and the possibilities of finding when you're doing those things. The third block are the assumptions. The assumptions are the things that have happened in the past that you think are going to happen in the future. Well, I got turned down for that job, so I'm not even going to bother doing it. I dated just the biggest losers, and I shouldn't even date anymore because men always do this, or women always do that, or my child does this. We make assumptions all the time. So how would it be different if you believed something else? The next time you make an assumption, don't roll with it. Don't sit there. Challenge it. Start challenging the things, the rules, the ideas, the beliefs, the blocks. What would it look like if I believed something else? It does. It's a skill. It takes a lot of work, a lot of mindfulness. But I can tell you again that letting go of the lies and the stories that no longer serve you release you from a past that doesn't serve you. And you deserve so much more. And when you start to creep into those spaces, you will start to see amazing things start to come your way. It's about changing your perspective in life. Practicing self-awareness gives you the first steps in finding your truth. And you can then begin self-acceptance, self-love. And that's where you start building on your everythingness. Wherever you are, there's so much more for you. I'm not done. I am not done. I have just begun my journey. I have learned so much from some amazing people. And I've been through a lot. Those little snippets, not even. But I can tell you, over the last 3 years, it has been a tsunami in my life. But it was the tsunami, it was the roller coaster, the earthquake that left me aware of everything. And I'm so grateful. There is a lesson in every single experience that we have. So I hope that you now have some great tools. One, tell that story. There is so much release and so much grace. I promise you, write it down, build it, tell it, be heard, begins your voice. 2, meet that inner critic. Make nice, play nice. Start to understand where your inner critic is coming from. Find some compassion and start mending fences and teaching them that it's okay and they'll be okay because you got this. And 3rd is start working on your self-awareness. It is hard. It is so hard. But you can do it. So I'm so grateful that you all joined me tonight for my very first webinar. And I promise you that if you just start taking baby steps, leaning into the things that scare you with some of these tools, great things happen. And I am just so grateful that I have gotten to spend this time with people and with clients and to share these beautiful tools and these messages to create powerful, beautiful impacts. I love watching people shift and make changes and open themselves up to their everythingness. So, I don't know if I'm supposed to do questions and answers, but if anybody has a question, I can try and look it up. But I am curious which strategies maybe resonated for you. Maybe you could share it in the chat. It would be awesome. I'd love to see if something spoke to you. I know that takes a lot of vulnerability, but who knows, you could be a gift for someone else. What are your takeaways for tonight? What is one little thing you're willing to do for yourself now that we've spent this time together? And hopefully this has been really helpful for you. And if you want to move forward on this and you would like a partner to help you, you are more than welcome to reach out in the chat and say, I'd love some coaching. I do offer one-on-one partnership coaching, so you can reach out to me. You can reach out to my new email, lauren@lbwcoaching.net. You can message me, you can friend me, whatever, you can put it in the chat. I'm here for you. And what I really, 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 really want you to know is that you're not alone. We are connected. You're here for a reason. You've learned this for a reason. And sometime soon, something's gonna sprinkle on you and you're gonna be like, oh, I remember Lauren, that one with the hair. I do, I remember she said that. Oh, so anytime, I'm always here for you. It's what I do because it was such a gift to me. I just wanna pay it forward. So thank you so much for joining me tonight, and I look forward to connecting with you again.